Yosemite National Park is a land of giants. Towering granite cliffs, ancient sequoia trees, and thundering waterfalls create a landscape of breathtaking beauty and immense scale. Millions flock here every year to witness its majesty, to hike its trails, and to stand on the edge of its iconic overlooks. But with great beauty comes great danger. The very cliffs that inspire awe can become instruments of tragedy in a single, thoughtless moment. For a handful of visitors, the pursuit of a thrill, a photo, or a shortcut has led to a final, fatal mistake. These are the stories of those who faced the unforgiving granite of Yosemite and lost. Case 1. The Telegraph Rock Copycat. Tomer Frankfurter was an 18-year-old with a bright future. Visiting from Israel before starting his compulsory military service, he was already a university student, ambitious and full of life. On September 4, 2018, he was hiking the popular Mist Trail, a route that takes visitors to the very brink of the powerful Nevada Fall. Separated from his friend, he fell in with a new group of hikers, enjoying the shared experience of the park's stunning scenery. As they reached the top of the fall, a 600-foot drop, Tomer announced he had an idea for a photo. He wanted to recreate a famous optical illusion from Brazil's Telegraph Rock, where people appear to dangle precariously over a massive drop, while in reality, they are only a few feet off the ground. He handed his phone to a woman in the group and walked toward the cliff edge. Ignoring the shouts of his new companions, he climbed over the edge and hung by his hands, smiling for the camera. Witnesses later told investigators they desperately tried to explain that the Telegraph Rock photo was a trick, that this was a real, deadly drop. But Tomer was committed to the shot. For a few seconds, he hung there, suspended over the void. Then, his smile vanished. He began to struggle, his arms shaking as he tried to pull himself back up. Several people rushed to the edge, grabbing his sweat-slicked arms, but they couldn't get enough leverage to haul him to safety. His grip failed, and in a horrifying instant, he slipped from their grasp and plunged into the abyss, his fall witnessed by the very people who had tried to save him. His body was later recovered by park rangers, a tragic end to a life full of promise, and a stark reminder of the deadly consequences of chasing a viral photo. Case 2. The Influencer's Final Post. Meenakshi Murthy and Vishnu Viswanath were a young, successful couple living the American dream. Originally from India, they were tech professionals and passionate travel bloggers. Their Instagram account, Holidays and Happily Ever Afters, was filled with beautiful photos from their adventures. But ironically, it also contained posts warning about the dangers of daredevil selfies. In one post, Meenakshi had written about the foolishness of standing on cliff edges for a photo, questioning if it was worth the risk. In October 2018, their travels brought them to Yosemite's Taft Point, an unfenced granite overlook with a dizzying 800-foot drop. They set up their tripod right at the edge, hoping to capture a dramatic sunset shot of themselves against the vast emptiness. There were no direct witnesses to what happened next. The following morning, another park visitor discovered their abandoned camera and tripod at the cliff's edge and alerted rangers. A search began, and soon, 2 bodies were spotted on a ledge 800 feet below. An autopsy would later reveal that both Meenakshi and Vishnu were intoxicated at the time of their fall. The investigation concluded that, under the influence of alcohol and in the fading light, one of them likely slipped while they were setting up their shot. The other, either holding on or standing too close, was pulled over the edge with them. Their final, tragic photo was never taken, but their story became a global cautionary tale about the deadly pursuit of the perfect social media post. A photo later emerged, taken by another hiker, showing Meenakshi near the edge shortly before her fall, a haunting final image of a woman who, in a tragic twist of irony, had warned others of the very danger that would claim her life. Case 3. The illegal wingsuit flight. Dean Potter was a legend in the world of extreme sports. A world-famous climber, slackliner, and base jumper, he was known for pushing the boundaries of what was considered possible, often by performing illegal jumps in national parks. On the night of May 16, 2015, the 43-year-old Potter and his 29-year-old friend, Graham Hunt, hiked to Taft Point. They weren't there for the views. They were there to fly. Their plan was to perform a wingsuit base jump, a dangerous and illegal activity in Yosemite, aiming to thread a narrow notch in the rock face at high speed. To avoid being caught by park rangers, they waited until dusk to make their leap. As darkness fell, they stepped off the cliff and into the void, their wingsuits transforming them into human gliders. They hugged the granite wall, accelerating to incredible speeds as they aimed for the small opening in the rock. Friends waiting below expected to hear from them by radio after the jump, but the call never came. When they failed to return, a search was launched. Rescuers found their bodies the next day on a rocky outcropping below Taft Point. Neither of them had deployed their parachutes. The investigation concluded that in the low light, one of them likely made a slight miscalculation, a tiny error in judgment that at that speed was instantly fatal. They had slammed into the cliff face while attempting their high-risk maneuver, a tragic end to a life lived on the edge. The incident reignited the debate over base jumping in national parks, with some arguing for its legalization to improve safety, while others maintained that the inherent risks were too great. Case 4. The human chain overfall. On July 19, 2011, a church group from California's Bay Area was enjoying a summer day trip to Yosemite. They hiked the popular Mist Trail to the top of Vernal Fall, a powerful 317-foot waterfall. While most of the group stayed safely behind the metal guardrail, 3 of them, 21-year-old Ramina Badal, 22-year-old Homiz David, and 27-year-old Ninos Yakub, decided to climb over it. They wanted to wade in the Merced River and take photos, just feet from where the water plunged over the cliff. The river, swollen with snowmelt, was icy and swift, but they ignored the warning signs and the shouts of other hikers. Witnesses later described them as taking pictures and being stupid. As they posed in the rushing water, one of them slipped on the slick granite and was immediately swept toward the edge. In a desperate, instinctive act, the other 2 lunged to help, grabbing onto the first person and forming a human chain. But the power of the river was overwhelming. It pulled all 3 of them, locked together, helplessly toward the brink. For a horrifying moment, they slid across the smooth rock before vanishing into the thundering spray of the waterfall. None of them survived the fall. It was a tragic lesson in the unforgiving power of nature, and a reminder that safety barriers are there for a reason. The bodies were not all recovered immediately, with some being found further downstream over time, a grim testament to the river's relentless force. Case 5. The waterfall slip and slide. Some of the most tragic stories are the ones with the fewest details, leaving us to imagine the final moments. In Yosemite's official incident logs, one such case is identified only by the initials JEO. This adult male hiker had illegally camped overnight at the top of the magnificent Upper Yosemite Fall, a staggering 1,400-foot drop. The next morning, instead of packing up and hiking down, he decided to have some fun. He entered the creek just above the waterfall and began using the smooth, water-slicked granite as a natural water slide. It was a decision driven by pure, unadulterated thrill-seeking, completely ignoring the deadly drop just a few feet away. He likely laughed as he slid through the shallow, fast-moving water. But as the granite steepened, The current picked up speed, and his friction on the rock decreased. Suddenly, he was moving too fast to stop. Before he could get his feet under him or grab onto anything, the creek funneled him directly over the edge. In a single horrifying instant, he was gone, plunging the full 1,400 feet to the valley floor below. His body was later recovered by park rangers, his story becoming a grim entry in the park's logs and a cautionary tale in books about deaths in Yosemite. A testament to the fatal consequences of treating a powerful waterfall like a playground. The incident is often cited in discussions about the dangers of underestimating the power of water in the backcountry, even in seemingly shallow areas. Case 6. The Thunderstorm Cable Climb. Half Dome is one of Yosemite's most iconic and challenging day hikes. The final 400 feet require ascending a steep granite slab using 2 steel cables as handrails, a daunting task even in perfect weather. On May 21, 2018, an adult male hiker and his companion were on the cables when a thunderstorm rolled in. Rain lashed the granite, making the rock and the metal cables incredibly slick. Despite the obvious danger, they pressed on, likely driven by the "we've come this far" mentality that has led so many hikers into trouble. Somewhere on that near-vertical ascent, the man's foot slipped on the greasy rock. He lost his grip on the cold, wet cable and fell. Once he was outside the narrow lane of the cables, there was nothing to grab onto, nothing to stop his fall. He tumbled down the steep shoulder of the dome, disappearing from his partner's view. Rangers were called, and his body was later found below the cables. It was a death that was entirely preventable. Park officials constantly warn hikers to stay off Half Dome during wet or stormy weather. The combination of rain, slick rock, and the potential for lightning makes the cables a death trap, a lesson this hiker learned in the most tragic way possible. The incident served as a stark reminder to the thousands who attempt the hike each year that the mountain, not the hiker, dictates the terms. Case 7. The Alpinist's Basic Error. Balin Miller was a rising star in the climbing world. At just 23 years old, the Alaskan was already considered a world-class alpinist, known for bold and technically perfect ascents. In October 2025, he had just completed a difficult solo climb of El Capitan, Yosemite's most famous big wall. But as he prepared to descend, he realized one of his haul bags was stuck on the wall below. He decided to rappel down to free it. A photographer watching from the valley floor through a telescope noticed something alarming. Miller's rappel rope appeared to be several feet too short to reach the bag. But from 3,000 feet up, there was no way to warn him. Miller began his rappel, completely unaware of the fatal miscalculation he had made. As he neared the end of his rope, he continued to slide down, focused on the bag below. He had forgotten the most basic safety step in rappelling, tying a stopper knot in the end of the rope. In a split second, his rappel device slid off the end of the rope, and he was suddenly free-falling. He plunged down the face of El Capitan, the very wall he had just so expertly conquered. The climbing world was stunned. It was a painful irony. A world-class climber, at the peak of his abilities, killed by a simple beginner's mistake, likely brought on by the exhaustion of his incredible ascent. His death highlighted the fact that even the most experienced climbers are not immune to human error, and that in the vertical world, the smallest mistake can have the ultimate consequence. Case 8. The Solo Hiker's Disappearance. On a clear, unseasonably warm winter day in January 2021, 41-year-old Alice Z took a bus to Yosemite for a solo day hike. An introverted but adventurous tech worker from the Bay Area, she often sought solitude in nature. Her destination was the top of Upper Yosemite Fall. Another hiker, Anna Horn, encountered her near the overlook that afternoon. Alice seemed to be heading further on, toward Yosemite Point, perhaps to find a quieter spot, away from the few other people there. Worried about the icy conditions and the setting sun, Horn turned back. It was the last time anyone saw Alice alive. When Alice didn't return for her bus, she was reported missing. Search and rescue teams were deployed, and the next day, her body was found at the base of the 1,430-foot waterfall. While no one witnessed the fall, investigators pieced together what likely happened. Seeking solitude, Alice had probably ventured off the main trail onto less trafficked, snow-dusted granite. On the sloping, icy rock near the cliff's edge, a single misstep would have been impossible to recover from. With no one there to help, she would have slid silently over the brink. Her death was a quiet tragedy, a stark reminder of the hidden dangers of solo hiking in the unforgiving winter landscape of the High Sierra. It also underscored the importance of carrying a personal locator beacon, a device that could have alerted rescuers to her location immediately after the fall. From the thrill-seeker to the seasoned expert, Yosemite's cliffs make no exceptions. They demand respect, caution, and an awareness of one's own mortality. The stories of those who have fallen are not just tales of tragedy, but also lessons written in stone. They remind us that in a place of such immense natural power, the line between awe and terror is incredibly thin, and a single stupid decision can be the last one you ever make.